Hello Mr. and Mrs. Internet, my name is Upper Class, coming to you in the name of Art of Sampling with our first production tutorial. If you don't know what the Art of Sampling is, the Art of Sampling is a Facebook community where you can post any sample-based music, obviously. Anything from hip-hop to trap to drum and bass to whatever you like, and receive feedback and enjoy each other's music and whatever you want. I'm going to link the link to the Facebook group in the description, and you can join us. So, our first production tutorial is going to be about lo-fi, whatever sound, and many people maybe don't know what that exactly is. What I describe it as is your music will sound like it's been recorded with old, dusty equipment, which produces a very dusty, gritty, and a very warm sound. Many people like that. In today's music, it's all about getting tracks as loud, as clean, as defined as possible. And lo-fi is basically the opposite to that. We're going to try to break the mix, but we're not going to screw everything up. We're going to break our mix at the right places. I'm using FL Studio, but any digital audio workstation works. And that brings us to our first point. Many people ask if you need an SP404 or some very old equipment, and an SP1200, whatever, just to get a lo-fi sound, and my answer is no. Many people actually ask me if I use an SP, but I only use a Machine Micro and FL Studio, and a few VST plugins, and that's everything. You're not going to need to buy new equipment, just use the things you have. You're probably owning a digital audio workstation if you're making music, so that's anything you need. And we're going to take a listen to the track I have prepared right now. You probably heard it in the intro anyway. Intro section, yeah, come on, hurry up. So as you can hear, you hear a lot of things going on. The sample is has a very high background noise. It sounds like it's been a little bit broken down. The drums sound very chopped as well. They don't sound exactly clean, but that's what we do not want. They sound a little bit dirty, dusty, and we're going to try and achieve that sound, and actually reaching a lo-fi sound, is actually very easy. So we're going to take a look at the sample. The sample has as I mentioned, a very loud background noise. You can hear that. It sounds like it's been recorded to tape. There's also some sidechaining going on in the background, but I'm going over that later because that's more of an in-depth mixing tutorial, and I'm going to go over that later. So, what we can see, the effects that I applied to the samples, the first thing that I apply is a bit crusher, and bit crushing is probably one of the best things that you can do to get lo-fi sound. You see, I've done some things to it. I've set the downsampling to 4 times. Now you gotta imagine, in modern audio systems, the typical sampling rate is 44 kHz, and it takes it basically down by 4. And 44 kHz divided by 4 is probably 10. So we downsampled it to 10 kHz. It breaks the sample a little bit. I can show you how it sounds if I turn it off. Basically 1 time, so that means it's the original rate. So, and now I'm taking it up. It sounds a little bit like it's played out of an old Game Boy Color, and that's what we want because it breaks it down a little bit, but in the right place. You gotta be careful though, because after the bit crusher, there's a parametric equalizer, and it takes out some of those high frequencies that would sound very harsh if I wouldn't do that. Because the bit crushing basically just destroys the high frequencies and makes them sound a little harsh. We're taking that down. There's some weird stuff going on as well. It's sidechain compression, and I'm going over that later, as I said. So that is the first thing. The second important thing, as you can see, is low passing your samples. I'm going to do that to the extreme now. I'm going to show you another example later. And low passing is a very important thing. It makes everything sound more lo-fi instantly. Listen to that, it sounds very old. Just going to enable the drums as well. Now the drums are a little bit too... So you can basically do whatever you like. You can take it down to 1 kilohertz, can take it up to 3, 4, 5, whatever sounds best. Sometimes it's good to have them playing at the same amount of low passing, because it makes it sound like it's been made out of one box. You know what I mean. I'm taking it up again because that sounded best to me. And low passing is very important. What you can do as well is filtering. It's basically low passing with some resonance. I'm going to, not on the drums, but on the sample. The plugins are actually full right now. I'm going to take that delay out and reset and put a low pass in, and I'm cutting off some of the high frequencies, but instead I'm adding up a lot of resonance, and it sounds just like this. Sounds very dusty as well. You gotta have a good ear and listen to what sounds best, because we're breaking the mix, but we're breaking it in the right places, as I said. That is very important to know. So, of course, these are already the audio stems that I've recorded in Machine before. I've changed them only a little in Machine. What I actually do is I record the samples without changing too much, and I basically do everything inside FL Studio, and you can do that as well. You can do it in a different way as well. I'm just going over the things that you can do to make your stuff sound lo-fi, and you don't need the exact same plugins. These are basically things that FL Studio has integrated, but there's also some VSTs, and all the other equalizers work as well. They do just fine. So the next important thing is, how do you reach an unstable pitch? Many people know that the SP404 has a great effect called vinyl sim, and what it makes it sound like, it's like an unstable, how do you say? It's like a vinyl running at an unstable speed, which makes the pitch go up and down slightly. I can only recommend this plugin. It's called Unstable, and you can basically simulate the effect that this vinyl sim creates, and I'm going to show you how it works. I'm turning it off right now. Turning it on. So you can hear the sample pitch is not entirely stable, and that's what we are going to do. I've just been playing around with it a little. You got 3 modes. The buzz, that is a very quick change in pitch. The wobble, it's a little bit slower, and the drift makes it slightly, very slowly go upwards and downwards. I've turned that off actually. But it's a very nice VST, it's free, and you can download it on the internet, and I can only recommend it if you wanna give your, especially pianos, really, it adds a lot to them. So that's what I'm going to recommend. The next and last thing that we're going to cover, well, it's not the last thing, but we're going to take a look at the master effects. And we're basically doing the same here, adding a little bit of compression. I'm using the Ferric TDS tape compression. You can use any compression you like. It makes the things sound like they're glued together. What I see, what many beatmakers do that are new to the scene, they sample stuff and they chop it up and it sounds good, and then they're putting drums over it, and it maybe sometimes it works, but often it comes out that the sample and the drums sound like they're not meant to be played together, and instead only sound really well separated from each other, where you should have maybe used a different snare sound, or you know what I mean. And it requires some practice to know what sounds good together. I actually don't have a recipe as well, and sometimes I end up deleting my projects because I'm so frustrated because it doesn't sound like I want it. But that's not the case in this track. Wow. We're going to want people to head nod. That's why I add a master limiter as the last thing. It glues things together as well. I actually turned the threshold up quite a bit. And before the limiting kicks in, I found out that it is very helpful to add another parametric EQ and make it low pass as well. This is 8.6 kilohertz. I'm going to turn it on, and then I'm going to turn it off. You're going to hear a difference. Turning it off. Turning it on. I'm playing around with this a little. It doesn't sound as wrong as it did before. I actually changed some things in the mix, and it doesn't sound like it sounded in the beginning. And now I'm going over, you're basically going to do the same thing when you apply acapellas. If you're remixing something, I'm going to open up another project called Cold Nights. So here we are in the second project, and I'm just going over what you're going to do when you apply acapellas. I'm just going to change some things because FL Studio sometimes tends to delete the preset that I've applied to the bit crusher. This is the CMT bit crusher. You can get it for free on the internet. And wait a second. Okay, alright. You're basically going to do the same with your acapellas. I've applied a fast low pass. It works just like low passing with an equalizer. And I've cut off a lot of the frequencies and added some resonance, so it sounds like this.
Schwule Rapper, es wird Zeit, dass wir Tacheles sprechen. Ihr macht Welle, doch euer Flow ist Schwacheles. Ich mache nix umsonst, lass Monedos überwachsen.
And it fits the sound much more.
Jetzt ist Schluss mit Faxen. Ich rock die Seite fett und komm mit eurem Sack. Wenn die Beine reißen wir bei uns zu Hause ein und kacken auf den Teppich. Ich brauch Geld und darum rap ich. Meine Bros.
So I've been taking out just some of the high ends in order to make it fit to the rest of the beat a little bit more. And that's basically anything that matters in this concern. Making things sound like they're glued together, like they're out of one box. That's just as important as it is when you're making hi-fi music. So basically that's it. I hope from now on you're going to make your fans break their necks while head nodding. This has been Upper Class for the Art of Sampling. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Actually the first time I've ever done this. You can leave feedback in the comments below. Ask me any kind of questions and I'm trying to answer as well as I can. Thank you for watching and goodbye.